Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I have mentioned before that I want to really talk about some of the things that came out of the DEC public meeting on the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario and the bass fishery and how that's affecting all of us. And one of the first things that we talked about was traditionally we had all believed, and I say we as sportsmen, as tournament fishermen, as biologists, as whatever our role was in the outdoors, we had all believed that bass spawned in this area at a very specific time. And so one of the most fascinating thing that came out of this study, and a lot of the studies that were done by Tufts University in Canada, but it found that in the opening of bass season, the time when you can legally go out, not just catch and release, but catch and keep a certain number of bass, which has been June 15th, they found that on June 15th, in studying with cameras and looking at the bass beds in the St. Lawrence River, in Lake St. Lawrence, and in Lake Ontario, that at June 15th, and hear me now, this is incredible, only 8% of the bass had even, the spawning period hadn't even begun. In other words, what they found that only 8% of the beds, the fry were ready to swim upward. That's when they figured that the spawning had been completed. And only 8% at this time. We'd always believed by this time the bass were going to be safe. We were going to protect our species out there, and fishing wasn't going to hurt them as much as it would have before. Well, that blows that into the water, because what it appears is that 92% of the bass haven't spawned yet at this time when we open it up. So all those bass on the beds and all the eggs that they're laying and so forth, they're all under peril at this time if somebody were to catch fish. Now, what does that really mean? It means that if you take a bass off its bed during the spawning period, because of where smallmouth bass, we're talking about smallmouth right now. We'll talk about largemouth a little later, because they're very different in where they spawn. But where smallmouth spawn is where gobies live. Gobies live over hard bottoms, and gobies are waiting right outside the bed to rush in and destroy that whole spawning period for the bass that year. And that's what can happen. So at this time, those bass are under tremendous peril. So what do we do about that? What do we change the laws? Do we change the dates of legally fishing? There's all kinds of questions that come to bear at this. But what it also tells me is all these times when pike season begins and there's bass all over the area. This is in the beginning of May, and there's bass all over that same area where we're fishing for pike. The bass move into the shallows way before they start to spawn. But we always figure we're going to hurt them by fishing them at that time. And what it appears is that, and I'm just going to use my words here, would be a safe time to fish. We're not putting those bass under the peril that we thought we were, because the beds aren't even formed yet. So this is something to think about as we go into the future. And there's so many more things that enter into this, and I'll try to touch them in each of our reports. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.